This is Flipping Junkie Podcast, Episode 4. Welcome to the Flipping Junkie Podcast. My name is Danny Johnson, former software developer turned house flipper, flipping hundreds of houses. Each week, we bring you interviews, strategies, stories, and motivation to help you get started flipping houses and on your way to becoming your own boss and achieving financial freedom. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's get to it. All right, today is a good episode. I've got my good friend Justin Williams. He's been a full-time investor for over 8 years, and he's flipped over 500 houses. Now, Justin is the systems guy. He really has turned his house flipping business into a real business where he's not having to be there doing every little thing. He considers himself a house flipping machinist because he does build systems that scale quickly, and so he can do more with his time and do what he wants with his time. We also go into a lot of detail about how he set up his systems from the beginning for his house flipping business, how he hired the person that really basically runs his entire business now, and how you can do the same. There's some powerful stuff in here as far as like even questions to ask yourself every time you do something during the day to see if that's something that somebody else could do for you. And, you know, why it's wrong to think you can do everything better than somebody you could hire to do it, which is something that I've struggled with in the past. So enjoy the episode. I know I had a lot of fun interviewing Justin, and I'm sure you'll enjoy listening to him. So let's get to it. Hello, house flipping junkies. I'm super excited to introduce to you Justin Williams. If you don't know Justin, he's a great guy, a great businessman, a great house flipper. He's taught me a lot in this business. And if you don't know about his podcast, House Flipping HQ, you should really check it out. Hey, Justin, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, Danny, how's it going?
Pretty good. Yourself?
Doing awesome. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad you made it. So tell us a little bit about you and what type of investing you do.
So I've been a full-time real estate investor for about 8.5 years now, and I am a flipper, as you mentioned. But I don't really consider myself a flipper. I consider myself a machinist, a house flipping machinist. Right? My goal is to create a machine that works for me, and you know we've done pretty well with that in the past. Since we started 8.5 years ago, we've flipped over 500 houses. Wow! Currently doing about 100 houses a year, and this year we'll do anywhere between 150 and 200, and that's pretty hands off for me. I'm pretty hands off with all that. So. And you're able to do that because of the systems that you've built. If I tried to do that, I would be pulling my hair out and going crazy. But that's exactly, you know, and I remember talking to you a couple years ago, and actually just a little bit over a year ago, and I was talking to you, and you were talking about systems, and I was talking about growing my business, and, you know, I just remember thinking, I need to go and spend time with you in person, you know, and I know you probably thought I was kind of crazy when I called you and said, do you mind if I come to your house tomorrow? You know, I just wanted to jump on a plane and get over there, and that was really cool that you I thought you are a successful person because that's what successful people do, in my opinion. So I thought you were just like me because that's something I would do. So yeah, so and you said, yeah, come on over. So I, got a plane ticket and went over there and spent a day with Justin, and I learned a ton of stuff, and it was really a great experience. And I'm so glad I did. It was so worth it. So. Well, I was excited, not to cut you off, but I was excited that you wanted to come because I wanted to learn a ton from you. I learned a ton from you, and it was a great opportunity for me to pick your brain. I know because of all the things I learned about internet marketing and online marketing. So for me, it was a win-win. I really appreciated you coming, and I learned a ton as well. So. Yeah, and that's a lot in this business whenever you open yourself up to learn from other people and willing to take the time to help them and have them help you. So, I'd really like to find out more about reasons why people started, flipping houses. Would you mind sharing your backstory with us about how you got started? Yeah, absolutely. I've been an entrepreneur basically my whole life, I guess you could say. But, I was going to Brigham Young University, playing football, just got married. It was about 10 years ago. I always forget years, but this was about 10 years ago, 11 years ago I got married, 10 years ago. And my wife and I started this satellite dish business just over 10 years ago, and ended up with, long story short, we ended up with $120,000 of debt, failed partnership, had to let all my staff go. We moved to Bakersfield basically overnight. were living, so we had $120,000 debt. We were living in this house with like 10 other people that worked for us, family. It was just a madhouse. It was crazy. We had a 6-month-old son, and worked harder than we ever worked in our life. Good, knocking door to door, getting that debt paid off, right? And then once we got the debt paid off, I'm like, okay, we're done with this. Let's get into real estate. We always want to do real estate. Got into real estate. Basically, we were ripped off. You know, we spent $40,000 in our first 2 years trying to learn this business.
Wow.
My first mentor promised me a car I never got. It was wild. You know, took us 7 months to do our first deal, but we finally did it. It was a lot of work. We took a lot of action. So that's kind of how we got started. But then after that 7 months, well, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just saying with the you know, so your mentor promised you a car. I mean, that was like a contest, right? I think you had told me about that before. So
Yeah.
what exactly happened there with that?
So part of the thing was this guy, like, this is I paid $15,000 for his program, and basically he said, you know, whoever is the best student, whoever shows the most improvement is what he said. But it's basically saying whoever performs the best is going to get this free car. And he had this picture of him with this car, and it was like, this Chrysler 300. You know, not the most fancy car in the world, but, you know, nevertheless a nice car.
Yeah, it's a car.
Yeah, it's a car. And, you know, my wife and I won the car. A year later, we went to another seminar of his. We presented. Everyone voted. It was like this big deal. It was like one of the neatest, most amazing days of our life. I mean, next to like getting married and having our children, it was like up there, right? People were cheering, gave us a trophy, gave us a picture of the car, said he was going to send it because he didn't know who was going to win, so he had to send it to us. And, you know, a few days went by, no big deal. Weeks turned to months, and he just never sent it. And
Wow.
it was
That's insane.
Yeah, it was horrible. But, you know, at the end of the day, stuff like that happens, right? And
Right.
we could either focus on that, or we thought, you know, or we can just go go do another deal and buy our own car, right? So we just moved on.
Right. There's no sense in sitting there and being angry about it and upset and not doing anything, you know.
Yeah. So it took 7 months though, and there were many times when we felt like, is this really gonna work? Like we wanted to quit. But the crazy thing is, after that 7 months, it only took 2 months to do the next deal.
Right.
And then it took 6 weeks to do the next deal. And then we started doing deals on a monthly basis, sometimes more than one. And that's when things really started to look up. We're like, oh, this business really does work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people see that, you know, that it takes so long to get that first one, and then they're just thinking automatically that it's going to take that long again, even after they get the first one.
Yeah.
But almost everybody I talk to, it's the same situation. I think it took us 5 or 6 months. I don't even remember anymore, but I know it was about the same amount of time. And then the second one, I think, was in the next month.
Well, it's like the learning and experience and all the things that you don't know is what takes so long. And once you have that, that's so valuable, right?
Mm-hmm.
People just, they sometimes don't think about it that way. I mean, I believe strongly that you just have to, once you figure out how to make money, you can make as much as you want. So it's just a matter of learning how to make the money, and then you can just go gangbusters, right?
Right, you find out what works. Yeah, so... And then the part of having the faith that you're going to find a deal, and then when you get one, you know, wow, you know, these exist. I can do it. I can do it where I am, you know, and you let go of all those things that are, you know, holding yourself back with the thoughts of doesn't work here, wouldn't work for me. I don't, you know, I can't do that kind of thing, you know, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you guys, you know, what you typically, you know, how do you find most of your deals? I think you buy from wholesalers and work with real estate agents, correct?
Yeah, I do all kind. I've done short sales, I've done REOs, I've done trustee sales, which is foreclosure sales for those of you who may not be aware. I buy from wholesalers. We do a lot of our own direct marketing. You know, in 2010 we had kind of a lull, because before that we were doing short sales and wholesaling and all kinds of stuff. But then I started to change that in 2010. And we had this lull, and then in 2010 we decided to start buying rental properties. And in the beginning of 2011, we had purchased 12 rental properties in the last 4 months, and that was the most houses I'd ever purchased at any single period of time. It was for their rental properties, so I wasn't really worried about the flipping margins or any of that stuff. But what happened in February of 2011 is we were totally out of money, right? We put any of the money that we did earn, that did make up to that point, we put into rental properties. And then we had all of our private money lenders, they were out of money. And I was like, crap, like I literally can't pay my bills next month, right? So we took those 4 houses. So we took 4 of the 12 houses, and I had to sell them. I had to get the money, to keep my business going, to keep paying for my family and everything. And when we sold those 4 houses, I was devastated at first, but then I realized how much money we made. We made more money than we needed for like an entire year to live. And I looked at the returns compared to what we were getting on rentals, and it just hit me. I was like, okay, what if I could do this every month? What if every month I could flip 4 houses? Because I sold the 4 houses. What if I could sell 4 houses? What if I could make more money in 1 month than I need for an entire year? Like, what could that do for me? And I started thinking about books like The E-Myth and The 4-Hour Work Week, and I was like, I know supposedly rental properties is the only way to have passive income in real estate, but I also know that you can create a business, not a job. I know that there are these huge businesses out there that are ran with systems. I thought, why can't we do that? Why can't we do this on a big scale? So we did.
If I could stop you real quick too, the whole point of, it's finding the positive in the adversity. So you were thinking, wow,
Yes.
we can't pay our bills. We're house rich right now, but cash poor. And instead of thinking, and throwing up your arms and saying, oh, well, you found the benefit out of it. You actually took that adversity and turned it into where you are now. Like you just did that pivot right there when you looked for how to change the situation to your benefit. Yeah.
And I can write 10 different times in my life where that has been the case, where there was a moment of utter like feeling of failure and loss and struggle and oh my gosh, like what are we going to do? Our life is over. I mean, I'm like dramatizing the situation. We were about to have a baby. My wife was stressed. We didn't know what we were going to do. Like, it was, if we got into the details, like I would be bawling. My wife would be here. We'd be crying, right? It was very difficult situations. Every single time, as long as we didn't give up, we just dug in and looked for a way. Different doors would open, different opportunities would present themselves, because the opportunity is everywhere. It's just a matter of you looking for that. And every single time, with hindsight, we have been better off because of that challenge or struggle that presented itself. I would not be, a multimillionaire right now. I wouldn't be making 7 figures a year and living, where I want and doing what I want if it wasn't for that struggle that we went through.
Right, and that's huge. And then I'm sure that you're now like I am, where if something comes up and it's sort of a problem, we maybe spend a minute, if that, feeling sorry for ourselves.
Yes.
And right after that minute, if that, it's like, okay, well, how is this actually going to help us? Why this happened for a reason, to teach us something and to change something to improve everything. So
mourn for a couple minutes, and then okay, now what? Right?
Yeah, figure out how you're going to turn it around. Why is this a positive that this happened? Yeah.
So in 2011, we ended up flipping 60 houses, which was more than we had done the previous like 3.5 or 4 years combined. And we went literally from 2010 to having a very low income year, and I think we made it was crazy, like $40,000, to in 2011 making multiple 6-figure income, and just like, oh my gosh. I mean, it sounds so crazy, but literally, like, it's like from one year to the next, our lives were changed, and we went from not knowing how to pay our bills to being able to literally, and this is different for Tara and I, because we grew up, not having a lot of money in either one of our families, just kind of getting by. And it's like, wow, like we can go on any vacation we want. We can pretty much buy any house we want. We can move where we want. We can do what we want. And it was a crazy thing. It was just a crazy experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and it's amazing how fast that can happen, when you really build like the systems. So let's talk a little bit about the systems that you built, because that was the whole point of me flying out there to see you, is I wanted to know from top to bottom, like, how did you grow, like build and grow your systems? Like, I'm sure you learned things along the way. Can you walk us quickly through like where you started with building the systems?
The number one thing, like, I'd advise every single person to do, and I don't want to oversimplify this, but every single day, rather than just get to work, think of how can I get this done without me being involved? Like, every single thing you do, how can I outsource this? How can I systematize this? Who can I get to do this? I mean, just this morning, now, I'm doing my education business, right? And, we started a new platform called 8-Minute Millionaire. And I just came up with this idea to get like someone else to do most of my blog posts for me, at least most of the legwork. But that's just constantly how I'm thinking. always trying to replace myself. I'm always trying to fire myself. Every time I'm doing something, whether it's signing paperwork or anything, I think, how can I get someone else to do this? And it's not, can I? Never, ever ask, can it be done? Always, how can it be done?
Mm-hmm.
Because I guarantee you the president of Apple or any of these huge companies is not dealing with all these details in all aspects of their business. There's no way they would have one store and that would be it, and it would still be floundering, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's impossible.
So focusing on, like, you focus on what you feel like you can do better than other people, and then look at, you know, what it costs, like what your time is worth, and then how much you could pay somebody else to do it. And then it seems like an obvious decision at that point, right?
Exactly. And it's basically three things. Should I be doing this? Like, should I eliminate this? I could go, if I were to, consult with someone, I could go through their life and everything they're doing, and 50% of everything they're doing, they literally just stop, right?
Yeah,
so
I learn that lesson like every week.
Yeah, so now they have like another 50% of their time back, right? Then you can go through and it's like, okay, how can we systematize this? So first look at what can you stop doing. There's like three things. Stop, drop, and roll. No, I'm just kidding. Stop doing it, systematize it, and that's without having to have someone else do it, and then outsource, okay? So look at those three things. A lot of things can be systematized without really having to like necessarily pay someone to do it. There's just a lot of things anyway. So just look at those three things and figure out how you can systematize your entire business and life. I like to systematize my life as well. So it just gives me more time in general.
Yeah, and one of the things I remember I talked to you about, and I think a lot of people think about this whenever they're looking at hiring somebody to do some of the things, they're thinking, you know, I can do this better than anybody else, so I need to do it. And what you had told me was maybe you can do it better, but when you're trying to do everything, you can't do it as well as somebody else. That's all they're doing is focusing on that task. And that makes a whole lot of sense. And then the other thing was the struggle of teaching somebody or having somebody do things the way you want them to, or to have them constantly be calling you with questions. And it's like, you know, you're spending just as much time as if you had just, like, you could have done it quicker basically than, you know, them just asking you and you helping them through it. And you said, well, the thing is, like, that might be in the beginning, but as soon as they get it and run with it, then your time is freed up.
Yep.
And one of the big things from that was when someone calls you, this is what you had told me that you do, is that when somebody calls you, they can't call you with a problem, you know, without first having thought through some sort of solution to the problem that they're going to run by you. So, you know, say something needs to be done at one of the rehabs, and they call you and say, hey, you know, there's a hole in the ceiling. You know, we don't know if there's a leak from the roof or something like that. What should we do? You know, you don't accept calls like that.
No, they need to call me with the solution every single time. And what's so interesting, Danny, is at first, their solution might be the right solution 50% of the time, and then it's 75% of the time, and now they call me, and 99% of the time, their solution is perfect. And if anything, I might just, like, give one other little tidbit, right?
Right.
But it's incredible. And as they've done that, they've become empowered to where they actually don't need to call me that much.
Right, yeah, they make the decisions, right. Yeah,
they know they've been empowered to know they can make those decisions.
And then the other thing I took away from that meeting was, you know, basically, you know, with regards to rehabs, you know, if there's a question about whether something should be done, you put a price limit on it. If it's more than X amount, then they need to call and get your approval. But if it's not, they can make the decision themselves.
Yep. And Tim Ferriss talks about that in his book as well. I mean, it's actually been a long time since I read the book, but just the concept, right? It's just not worth my time. Like, my time is worth, you know, a couple $1,000s an hour, right? Like, I don't need someone calling me and asking me if they can pay a contractor an extra $100 for something and having that take 20 minutes of my time and disrupting my whole day. Like, right. I just take care of it. Right? I don't care.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense, and it actually frees up a lot, because when you think about it, most of those calls are for things that don't really cost that much.
Yeah.
You know, it's stuff that just, and usually, you know, the answer is always, yeah, go ahead and do it.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
So with regards to, so who did you, what kinds of things in the beginning, because, you know, there's a lot of people out there that are maybe doing some deals and feel like they can do more if they just maybe brought on somebody to help them do some of the things. So what were some of the first things that you did that you hired somebody to take care of?
You want to start with, so when you're hiring someone to help you out, there's two things that you want to start getting rid of. You want to start with the things that take the most time and are the easiest to do. So that's one category. Okay. So things like utilities, where you could be on the phone for like an hour, but anyone can do that, right? It's like a big waste of time. Things like paperwork, things like lock boxes, things like just all this stuff, like entering data into the MLS. You know, if you are doing, you know, we outsource all our letters now, but if you're doing like letters, like she started writing out the letters, and just every single little thing that you can think of that just takes time. My goal is to like never leave my office unless it's to go have fun. Let's just go to the beach with my family, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's like all these basic things like just take a lot of time. Always, always. Never just go and do it. Always say, do I have to do this? Or is there a better way? Maybe at the beginning, you're having them go to properties and they're doing videos and giving you details and all this stuff. But how much time can that save you? What if that can save you an hour of time, right? So just all these little tiny things you want to have someone else do. And then what else you want to do is you want to teach them one thing that they can always do whenever they have nothing else to do. Because the last thing you want to do is hire someone and now all you're doing is spending all your time trying to give them stuff to do. That's like the worst feeling ever. So first off, I'd recommend starting part-time. Give them all the basic, easy to teach things that just take a lot of time. And then teach them one thing that they can always do that can take as much time. So for example, when I hired Vanessa, I had her doing all these basic things. And then I said, whenever you have extra time, which was half of her time, right? She still had working 20 hours a week, 10 hours she had doing these basic things. Then the other 10, she would just get on the MLS. And this is when you could buy more houses on the MLS. And she would just look at house after house after house and make offer after offer after offer. So I taught her how to analyze properties. I intentionally hired someone that was an agent before, so she knew how to use the MLS a little bit, but she didn't know how to analyze properties like an investor. No one does, right? You know that. Mm-hmm. So I taught her how to analyze properties and make offers. And yeah, that way I didn't have to spend a ton of time working with her, but I could just give her basic feedback. So those two things, that's kind of where I focused.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking was basically one of the things that you could always have somebody do in their time when they don't have the other task to do is marketing. You know, we always need to be marketing, and that's something that, yeah, they can absolutely fill up a full-time week.
Yep.
If you didn't have something else for them to be doing.
Yep. And yeah, and then they build on it. After a couple of weeks, you train them one new skill. You know, a couple weeks later, one new skill. Until now, she runs my entire house flipping business.
Yeah, it's crazy. And how did you find Vanessa? Craigslist. So you just put an ad that said, you know, what's the gist of what your ad said?
Yeah, I put an ad on there that said, you know, just what I was looking for. I try to be specific, but not too much, but not like super long, right? Short and to the point, but specific. And then I got like 100 resumes. Out of that, we nailed it down to 7 that we then emailed a couple follow-up questions to. And from there, I narrowed it down to my top 2 or 3, and she was number 1. And I said, hey, do you want to meet up? We went and met at Starbucks. I gave her the job on the spot. She didn't have anything for me. At the time, I didn't have a website because I wasn't buying houses online, right? Other than MLS. So I didn't have a website. I didn't have a card. I had like one little thing I could give her that gave her any kind of validity of anything. I think she was a little like, okay, this is weird, but whatever. She worked from her house. I worked from mine. And we went after it. We've never looked back since. It's been over 5 years.
That's awesome. So, and then the ad, you know, were there any skills that you asked for in the ad, you know, that you were looking for?
You know, I wrote the basic, like, you have to be able to have some computer skills, got to have people skills, you know.
Have to have a car and a license, right?
What's that?
Have to have a car and a license, right?
That was the one, car and a license. The one thing, I was like, hey, what's one specific skill, though, that I do want them to have? Because tons of people out there that can type and communicate and whatever. But I was like, what's the one skill I want this person to have that they're going to focus on the most? And for her, it was going to be making a bunch of offers. And so I wanted to find someone who could use the MLS. So they could also input data. I don't know how to use the MLS hardly at all. Like I do. I comp properties and stuff. I have, not anymore. I haven't been on MLS in a couple of years. But I wanted her to be able to fill out, seeing here in California, it's called the CAR form, the California Association of Real. I wanted her to be able to do all that stuff, right? I wanted her to be able to do the Oh, what's it called? The person who manages your houses that you're closing on. See, I can't even think of the words. Um,
What are you talking about? The closer?
yeah, not the closer, but the person the transaction coordinator. That's what I was thinking of. I wanted her to be able to do all those things, so without me having to teach her too much. So I looked for one skill that she would have that would help her with that, and that was her being a realtor. So, but let's say your main focus is you want someone to help you manage your projects. Like that's what she does now, but she built into that. You know, you might want to look for someone who maybe has a little bit of experience in construction or something that will give them a little bit of an edge to where you're not training them from absolute ground zero. It's just not necessary. Why train someone from ground zero if you don't have to, right?
Right, right. Yeah, and especially if you have, some experience with, obviously if you're hiring somebody to help you out, you probably have done some deals, like somebody that's interested in learning the business, but maybe not so much to the point where they just want to learn what you're doing and then go off on their own.
True.
But,
yeah.
And then the other thing was, did she seem like, whenever you were interviewing her, did she seem like she had passion to learn
Yes.
and figure out, because you probably in some of the emails, maybe of weeding through the other people, to me lately with hiring and everything, it seems like the people with passion are the ones that you want, even if maybe they don't have as much experience, but they'll take the time to really care and be interested about what they're doing instead of just like waiting for you to tell them each thing to do. They kind of develop their own ability to go off and learn things on their own and take initiative. Now, what kind of how did you compensate her in the beginning? How was it structured?
Yeah. So what I did was, at the very beginning, what was she getting at the time? I think we started at $10 or $11 an hour, and this was a few years ago, right? So that would be the equivalent of an extra dollar to whatever, I know minimum wage is different in different places, whatever. But then I said, look, after 1 month, because the first month of training someone, like, you are going to put in more effort than they're going to give you. Okay. And there's certain ways to set it up to where you try not to have it be more balanced, but that's just be aware of that, so you're not frustrated, right? So the first month I said, you're going to get paid X. After 30 days, you're going to get $1 raise. After 90 days, you're going to get another $1 raise. After 6 months, you're going to get another $1, and after 1 year, you're going to get another $1. And then we'll call it good. From there, we'll just see how it goes, right?
Right.
So what that did was, I could have said, if you do good, then we're going to give you raises. But for me doing that, it was kind of like the carrot was there, right? She knew it was possible. It wasn't this unknown. People fear the unknown. So I took away the unknown. And of course, she has to work hard, or she's just not going to have a job at all, right? And then we gave her bonuses. Like, for every house we bought, she got like $100 or something like that. So that's kind of how we started it out. I mean, now she's to the point where, what's she getting? Like, what I do now, I'll just say it. I don't care. She gets paid a guaranteed salary, and it's at like $75,000 a year, but her actual pay is based off of 10% of my net profit of my company.
Wow, so she has incentive to go out there and make more, to do more.
Exactly, yeah. So, for example, at the end of the year, she made $75,000. Let's say we make, whatever, $1 million, $2 million, whatever, right? It's
like doing math. Yeah, doing math and
interviews. So I'll do easy
always,
math. Yeah. So if we do $1 million, then she gets a $25,000 bonus, right? And this year, and we'll see what happens. Like, it could be a big year. She could get, $100,000 bonus or something like that,
that's
right?
Awesome.
So, yeah, but it's still like, it's not on top of her base. Like, her base is a guaranteed pay, so it's all inclusive, right? So anyway.
Right. Yeah. So no matter what, she knows that she's going to have X amount to manage and pay her bills and everything, and then.
Yep.
When you get that bonus, it's like, wow, look at, I expected to get this. I knew I was going to get this, but now I got this. And it's a
totally.
Great incentive. So have you had any issues with other parts of the business that you've systemized that you've, learned, maybe like any kind of mistakes that other people can avoid when it comes to systemizing their house flipping business?
We make mistakes every single day. If you're not making mistakes, then you're probably not growing and progressing. So I like to throw that out there, because so many people, like, they'll hear you and I doing the interview and it looks like this perfect, beautiful, everything's perfect. And no, we deal with problems every day. My thing is, I've hired problem solvers, right? So I only deal with minimal problems. But yeah, I mean, we've just learned. Okay, so I'll just go through some of the parts of the systems that I use, right? So acquisitions is that's where you make money in this business. Okay, I just learned a long time ago to let other people do the legwork for you in acquisitions. If I'm hopping on the MLS every day, or I'm writing out letters to sellers, or I'm the one taking the calls and going to those appointments and doing follow-up, and like, I'm never going to grow my business. And that's okay in the beginning. If you're just trying to learn the fundamentals for a few months, that's great. But after like 6 months to a year, if you're feeling burnt out and you're wondering, like, I feel like I have a job and I'm getting a deal here and there, but that's because you created a job, not a business.
Right.
So with acquisitions, you want to let everyone else do the legwork, and then they can just present you with the final deal. Like, once they have it under contract or they have a counter, they can present it to you and say, hey, this is why, this is the margins, this is how old the house is, this is why I think it's a good deal. And then all you have to do is say, sounds good. Or you have to say, oh, I'm concerned because of this, right? That should be your goal at the beginning to get to that point, okay? So that's acquisitions. And this can be done by, hiring someone to make offers for you. This can be done by working with wholesalers. This can be done by just looking at, like, if you're working direct to seller, maybe you have someone who sends out the marketing, and they take the calls, and maybe you meet with the person at first, right? You can take steps. Maybe they set up the appointment for you. Like, that's where my brother Steven is right now. Like, he has people out doing the marketing for him and screening the calls, and then they set up the appointment, and he closes like 8 out of 10 of his appointments.
Yeah,
and he
only
awesome. Spends a few hours a week doing it because he set up all the other system, and now he wants to get to the point where someone else is going to the appointment for him. Okay, so his job is to close the appointment and do the
I'm interested. Right. I'm interested to see how well that works for him to find somebody, because I've as the years gone by, and I've had other people helping me, I think that finding someone that can close the deals like you can is probably one of the harder pieces to fill in to have someone else do.
But once again, I'm gonna give you a hard time here. If you believe that will be true to you. Okay, so I'm not saying it will be harder. Yes, is it harder than having someone screen the calls? Yeah, but there are so many sales guys out there that could easily go close these guys, and they could probably do better than you. And I don't mean you're awesome, but they could do better than me, because guess what? Even though I have sales experience, that's not like 100% my thing. I'm trying to create a business. I'm trying to do all these other things. My friend Andy McFarland, who's actually my coaching partner with our coaching program, he's hired several salespeople in several states, and they're crushing it. They're doing like 15 deals a month, wholesale deals per month.
Wow, that's awesome.
So once again, and I'm a member of Collective Genius, which is a mastermind group. It's like $20,000 a year. Has all like the top real estate investors in the nation. Everyone, doing around 100 deals or more a year. And when we go to these meetings, we don't talk about ARVs and estimating repairs and stuff like that. We talk about building businesses. And one of the number one things people talk about is hiring salespeople. So it's once you get in that mindset and you realize, oh, there are hundreds of salespeople, it's just a process. You could have 10 sales guys in the next month if you wanted. So know it can happen, know you can do it. And for them, it's simple training. They just want to, if they have sales experience, they can close sellers, no problem.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Excuse me. So, where were we?
No, I'm just taking notes. No, but so there's always room for improvement. I just, I enjoy that part of it too, though, as part of the thing. And I think if I'm going to do something, that's probably where my time is most valuable. Sure. But I do agree with you that
you want to build into it. But Danny, I'm going to ask you a question point blank, and this is for everyone out there. Do you enjoy closing sellers more, or do you enjoy spending time with your family?
Yeah, spending time with the family, of course.
Do you enjoy closing sellers more, or do you enjoy building a, 7-figure plus business, right? It's like, you can go close sellers anytime you want, but set up the system to where you don't have to do that. And then if there's one day where you're super bored and you're like, you wake up, you're like, I really want to go close a seller today, then you can do that. But I encourage people to look in and you grow into it. Once again, I'm not trying to get people overwhelmed here. Look at every single thing and figure out how you can systematize it. And if that what you focus on is what grows, that's what you focus on is what improves. If you focus on it and believe you can do it, you will find a way to do it.
Right. And yeah, that's huge to always understand that when you're getting started, so that you always have that in your mind. Like when you're doing something that you've done before, that's the system that you document, so that when you bring somebody on, you have documentation of how you did it, and then they can just do it.
I used to enjoy closing sellers. I don't anymore. If I think about talking to a seller, I want to throw up. And I'm not saying people out there should feel this way, right? That's probably not good encouragement for everyone who's just getting started. But the point is that we're always growing and progressing. And once you've done something like hundreds of times, you want to do something new. You want to move on to something different. That's true. And now I am passionate about helping others grow their businesses and learn about wealth and abundance and mindset and how they can accomplish anything in life, right? How they can overcome any obstacle. That's what I love to do now. And so that's where I focus most of my time and let my business and my systems take care of all that other stuff.
Right. And that being the case, that's pretty much what your new podcast is about, isn't it?
Yep.
You want to talk about it real quick, exactly
Sure.
what it is? And
so I started House Flipping HQ a couple years ago. And what I've realized is everyone who is being successful in my coaching program, it was because they didn't let their mind stop them. The fundamentals can literally be learned depending on how much focus and effort you put into it in like a week, and then you take action and learn more and more, right? But the fundamentals are easy. It's getting people to believe what can be done. So I just realized everyone who's successful are the people who mentally have the game together mentally, and then they learn what to do, they go do it, and then there you go. So 8 Minute Millionaire is the new podcast and website that my wife and I started together. And it's just about helping people realize that they can accomplish anything and the different ways that are out there that they can make money, and getting rid of all the crap that we've been told our whole life, whether it's our own story that we replay in our head or something we've been raised with, money doesn't grow on trees, or money is the root of all evil. Just all these different things that impede us from being wealthy, that impede us from being successful in all our different areas, and changing that for people. And as a part of this podcast, we're mentoring my little sister, who she just turned 25 today. Today's her birthday, actually. And she still is basically tied to the umbilical cord of my mom. And she doesn't feel very smart. She doesn't feel like she can do things. But she doesn't have like a schedule. She doesn't have goals. She doesn't have all these things, right? So we are mentoring her and we are following her journey. And my goal is to take her, my wife and my goal is to take her from being broke as a joke, having zero, not feeling like she can do very much, doesn't exercise on a regular basis, to within 5 years making $1 million.
That's awesome.
And she's going to run a marathon in 6 months, and she's never done anything like that, She doesn't.
Well, it must have been amazing to sit down and write out those first goals. So was it, so you guys have done that, right? You've already gone where she's written out her goals, for at least the first amount of time. And did you see that she struggled with believing that she could actually do those things?
Yeah, I think she did a little bit, but she's seen me in the last few years go from being broke to making 7-figure income every year. And then also my other two brothers recently in the last couple of years have gone from, my brother Derek, he actually worked for me a couple of years ago. Before he worked for me, he was making like $30,000 a year. He worked for me, it didn't work out. Then he was stuck, right? How we talked about. He was stuck, and I think he was really upset at me for a while in a weird way, because it's like, dude, I had this job, I was making $30,000 a year, now I'm not making anything because I'm not working for you anymore. And he's in a corner, and he decided to start his own app making business, which his roommate was making apps at the time. So find your unfair advantage, right? Who do you know who's doing something you want to do? And I don't know exactly what he makes right now, Danny, but I do know that he recently, and this was in the last couple of years, mind you, right? He recently bought a really nice boat, cash. He bought a house for my other brother, Steven, who's doing really well in real estate right now, as a wholesale deal. Derek funded the entire thing. He also has like a lot of money with me, like multiple $100,000.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I'm pretty sure he's making like $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year right now. And this was 2 years ago. He was making 30,000, right? So I think he's seen what I've done. He realized he could do it. He thought, how can I do it? How can I take the steps? And then Steven, the exact same thing. Steven started real estate about 20 months ago. He's my brother after Derek, right? And he's working a dead-end insurance job, had no money to his name at all, just got married, had a baby on the way, didn't know how to pay the bills, got going, took crazy action for 3 months, fell flat on his face, got his first deal, and now he's systematized his business. We went on a family reunion last month, and he brought in, I don't know the net profit, but $80,000 in wholesale fees in 1 month.
Nice.
Systematized to the way that he's not working on his business like hours and hours a day. And so it's just, I think my sister has seen this, and I think that's what makes her believe. She just didn't know like what to do. She doesn't have the habits, right? I mean, she wakes up at like 10 o'clock and just kind of goes about her day. I mean, she's going to school, but it's just kind of like whatever, right? Like not even really into it. So yeah, we have her waking up now at 5:36 every day. She exercises every day, and then she gets going. And for the first year, I said, you were going to fall flat on your face. She actually has to pay me at first to do this, Danny. And I don't need the money. She has to pay me because she has to learn sacrifice. She's never had to do that because my mom's always given her whatever she needed, right? So she's required to wake up early, and she pays me to work her butt off. Okay, does that make sense? Like,
no, it makes a lot of sense. It's powerful. No, I think, you have to instill the whole thing where she's having to really work hard, put in the work.
Yes.
But that with that comes knowing that you did it yourself. Somebody else didn't do it for you.
Exactly. Yes. She's paying me $2,000 on the first month, $1,000 for the second month, and then nothing for the third month. It's just, I don't pay her, she doesn't pay me. The fourth month, she'll start getting paid minimum wage, and then she'll get raises based on her performance. I am not giving her anything in this. She is going to earn it all. It's all 100% her, and the goal is for her in her second year then to make a six-figure income, the next year make a $250,000 income, $500,000, and then the fifth year, when she's 30 years old, because today's her birthday, for her to make $1 million that year. And it's up to her, but I'm very confident that if she just sticks to, because it's really just a matter of having the habits and doing the things that millionaires do, and you can become a millionaire, right? And it's not about becoming a millionaire. The money is just that's the side thing. It's about changing the person you are and knowing that you can do and accomplish anything.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that gets into the whole thing when people talk about people that win the lottery and lose it within a year and actually worse off than where they were before they won the lottery. And it's all has to do with because they never became the person it took to earn $1 million.
Once you learn how to make money, I can make money doing 100 different businesses because I understand. I've been there. Like I've gone through that, and what it takes. You could take all the money we have right now and wouldn't faze me, right? I would like we talked about. I would cry for a minute and then I'd get back up and go get it again.
Right, absolutely. So what? We'll go ahead and wrap up the interview here. But is there a place where flipping junkies out there can our listeners can find you?
Sure. I mean, you can go if you're obviously this is a real estate podcast, so go to houseflippinghq.com and you can check out everything we've got there. We have a free 4-part video course that I go through a lot of the house flipping fundamentals. If you're interested in more detailed coaching, you can reach out to us, info@houseflippinghq.com. And then, check out 8minutemillionaire.com, and we have some really cool stuff going on there as well. So
cool. And we'll have the show notes page on Flipping Junkie. If you go to flippingjunkie.com/podcast/Justin Williams, flippingjunkie.com/podcast/Justin Williams. And we'll have key things, takeaways from the episode, and then links to his website and anything else mentioned in this interview. All right, Justin, well, I really enjoyed the interview and got a heck of a lot out of it. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time and all of the information that you shared.
Thank you, Danny. Thanks for having me.
All right, well, have a good one.
All right.
Thank you so much for listening to the Flipping Junkie Podcast. I've got a lot of awesome interviews with some amazing guests lined up, and I can't wait for you to hear them. So be sure to subscribe to the podcast right now and visit the blog at flippingjunkie.com for more awesome house flipping education.